coming up there shortly. See if it shows up. Let me see if it shows up. It should be.
I see him.
No, that's an old one.
Okay, fine.
4 days ago.
Okay, fine.
Let me check some. Maybe I have to do a restream. No, it should be. It says sending data. Huh. It says sending data for YouTube for some reason.
Well, what I have is I can see just a little bit. This is what I see on my end for your channel.
Yeah, for some reason it's not going to YouTube, which is not that big a deal. I can put it up on YouTube later, but it is going to Facebook, and it is
okay. So I'll go to Facebook instead.
Yeah, we'll go to Facebook.
And
or go to Periscope. If you go back to the Twitter feed.
I don't have Periscope. I don't think.
No, it's on Twitter. Yeah, it's
there.
I
see.
It's there live. Yeah, it's there live.
Okay, so let me go to
Now,
the
why
Twitter.
It's so bizarre that there's always a problem with somebody.
Right.
Hey, everybody, we're Final Cut Pro Radio TV live, and today, my name is Richard Taylor. To my, I got this right this time because everything's backwards. To my right, your left is Lydia Robertson, editor, and Ari Taub, director of the new movie 79 Parts. We are going to talk all about that in a few minutes, but we have some housekeeping to do. I'm not sure why it's not going to YouTube, but I'm looking at it just says sending data. That's bizarre.
Oh, we see it on Twitter.
Well, I can put it up after the fact. Let me just try one thing. No, it's weird. I don't know why it's not on YouTube, but it's kind of a pain. Let me just turn it off, back on.
It's frozen on Twitter.
Well, that'll be internet kind of stuff. Anyway, it is on Facebook. We are on Facebook. It's amazing, but Facebook is actually the biggest audience.
Oh, great.
Yeah, usually we've been finding incredible audiences with Facebook.
Yes. Yes, so we're definitely now on Facebook. That's the biggest audience. So what I'll have to do is, I don't want to start over again. I'm just going to go ahead and it's on Periscope. Let me see. It's on Periscope and it's on Facebook. We are going to, yes, it is on both of those. I don't know why. I have no idea why. It's so bizarre because I test these things and I test these things. And I test and I test and I test. And it's just the way.
And then the next thing you know.
Murphy's Law.
Right?
Well, that's exactly correct. So anyway, we are going to show a trailer here of 79 Parts.
I don't want to start over again. I'm just going to go ahead
I
know.
It's on Periscope. Let me see. It's on Periscope and it's on Facebook. We are going to. Yes, it is on.
There you go. That sounds better.
Yeah, I just wanted to put it up next to it so if we happen to look at it, we don't look down.
Yeah, that's fine. And the other thing I said, make sure you shoot it. So we're gonna do a preview. I mean, we're gonna do watch a trailer and then we're gonna come back. How's that sound?
Great.
Directly. Here we go. Let's do this.
You want to be a lawyer, and you need $10,000.
When would you want this back?
Have 6
Months?
Is he smoking something?
Need to happen. Just put the guns on and down.
U.S. Department of Immigration.
Please come up now, you.
Do you fraternize with any persons known to be engaging in criminal activity?
Why didn't you tell me?
It's a little bit complicated.
Either you're innocent, got bad advice, or you were involved.
Sounds like you got yourself a problem.
It's going to happen today. Don't worry, he'll be there.
50,000 motivo escondido to win. How many people did you tell? What the fuck?
You break it, it comes out of your paycheck.
All right, we are back live. That was a trailer for 79 parts. Let me pull up this one. Here we go. Lydia Robertson and Ari Taub. Lydia is the editor, and Ari is the director. So how did you guys meet? Let's talk about that first.
Well, we met in NYU Film School years and years ago.
1985?
85 through 87, 88.
Oh,
I graduated in 86.
Yeah.
And so we overlapped just a year, but mostly we were both just in different years, but we knew each other. And I think we really connected in 89 when I was working for a Japanese television company that was looking for feature scripts. And Ari sent me this script in its earliest stages. And at the time, Japanese wasn't interested in this kind of a film, so it didn't get done. But years later, here we are.
Wait a minute. This script is how old? As
Well,
old
the
as
script
you are.
itself, the script was probably written in between 89 or 92.
Okay.
At least way back then.
Okay.
And yeah, so the script goes way back, long before I, decided to make the movie.
And 1989 was when I saw the script, an earlier, much earlier version of the script called The Arrangement at that time.
Oh, I see. I like 79 parts.
Me too.
Me too.
So it's 1979? Is that the era?
That's correct.
Okay. And in order to keep it authentic, you actually filmed on 16 millimeter film.
Super 16, same
Super
thing.
16, okay.
So we get that widescreen. Yeah, absolutely. I've only shot my films in film, so I didn't want to. I've had many temptations to go to digital, but I've managed to survive and avoid it my entire career. Just to answer this question real quick, because it's kind of funny, part of the reason why I was able to stay on film is this movie took 6 years to make in production. So once I started in film, the last film lab at the time closed about a month or two before we wrapped. So I was able to keep it in film. I wouldn't mix formats, but the crews had to learn how to shoot with film cameras only, and some people just didn't know how to do it anymore. So we had to train the assistants to load the film.
Yeah.
So did they resist, or they just didn't know how?
No one resisted. Everybody, all of the filmmakers that I worked with who were too young to work on film just loved the idea that we were shooting a film on film. So there was no resistance. It was just they had to be trained properly. If they do it wrong, the film would be ruined. So it has to be proper training.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
And Ari and I both have been working in film since the beginning. I was a film editor before I became a nonlinear editor. So we have a lot of experience with
flatbeds
and edge code.
Yeah, I worked at the National Archives. As a matter of fact, I have a National Archives cup, and we they had flatbeds down there.
Yeah.
One of the most interesting things that happened at the National Archives on the 50th anniversary of the JFK assassination, we took out the actual Zapruder film out of storage.
Wow.
Because it has to be examined like every 10 years.
Yeah.
So I got to film all the artifacts from the JFK assassination, including Oswald's rifle, including his .38, including the magic bullet, including all this memorabilia that we have, I guess because it was a court case they had. But the actual film is just a tiny little, very innocuous looking.
Super 8 or
a little regular 8 film.
Regular 8 film, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting, it's in color, but we have the original. The day that it was shot, Zapruder contacted Secret Service, and they said, "Well, let us go with you to get this developed." So they went and got it developed. They made 3 copies. They have the original, which we have. They made a copy that was overexposed, a copy that was properly exposed, and a copy that was underexposed. We have 2 of those, and the third one is in the Depository Museum. But just to see that little teeny piece of history was up that close was incredible. And the interesting thing was it was spliced. It was, well, here's the thing. Not during the assassination scene, okay, but they took, I guess it was, one of the magazines wanted some pieces of it for their Life magazine, I think.
To make photographs, yeah.
So it was spliced at the beginning. I'm like, oh, man. But anyway, So film is very interesting. So do you still shoot on film going forward?
Well, I have been. In fact, I was shooting last week on film. Doing a lot of archival type of shooting. I was shooting military vehicles from World War II during the D-Day 75th anniversary. I was in Normandy and also down in Reading, and I was filming in the airplanes and in the trucks and jeeps. And I was filming on film because I want to capture those vehicles the way they were captured 75 years ago.
Absolutely. So I was there at Normandy on a boat going from Calais to London, I guess, or not to London, but whatever the port in England was. And I saw those cliffs and stuff. It's just chilling. I can't imagine. This was the end. What anniversary was this?
This is the 75th this year.
75th.
Yeah.
Just chilling when I went across there. So let's talk about 79 parts. So the script was from the early 90s, plus or minus. When did you start shooting?
Script was from the 80s, actually, but we started shooting, I think, in 2000. What was it? 2003, I think. No. That's so long ago. I'm sorry. I don't remember when we started shooting.
So we started shooting when our actors were young and beautiful.
Well, exactly.
By the time we were done, most of them had gray hair.
Well, speaking of actors, Eric Roberts. That's no
awesome.
That's no small catch.
Yeah.
Well, we had a casting director, Donna McKenna, who helped me get
great casting director.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he was in town, and we got him for 2 days, and he was fun to work with.
That's excellent. I mean, I can't imagine working with an actor of that caliber. It's just
and
fantastic.
What a good sport. He was such a great sport, right?
Was he?
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
So you shot it on film, and you transferred that to digital in order to get it into Final Cut.
Right.
Can I say a few things?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then you can, because you're the editor. So when we transferred to digital, I had a lot of typical problems that one encounters with shooting on film. We had some unusual situation where some lenses weren't properly collimated. So we had a softness in the eyes in some shots, and it really bugged the heck out of me, especially when you put it on a big screen. And we had some issues where I had purchased some film stock on eBay thinking I was going to save money, and the stock was must have been in a very warm area for a long time, and so it was very grainy. It was unusable. And the magic of what Lydia did, which I'm sure she's going to tell you about, using Final Cut 10, was unbelievable and unreal. The things that she did with those shots, with the soft eyes and the grainy footage, just mind-boggled me. And I realize now, it's almost like if you have a parent who's very old and you take them to the hospital, and now they have these miracle cures to keep them alive. If I had finished the movie 10 years earlier and Final Cut 10 wasn't around, I would have been screwed. Sorry about the foul language.
That's okay. That's not the worst that's said on internet these days.
Okay.
Well, I didn't come onto the film at the beginning because I was busy doing other things. I was working on other films. And so the film was sunk and scenes selected, shots selected, and some scenes loosely assembled in Final Cut Pro 7 because Final Cut Pro 10 hadn't come out yet when the film started. So it was all on Final Cut Pro 7. By the time I got on board, it was Final Cut Pro 10's third iteration.
Okay.
So it had come a long way from the beginning. And I had gotten a few whiz-bang plugins like Neat Video, which was the miracle of miracles for this film, and acquired a bunch of other plugins from various sources that were so great in helping us. But what really picked up was Final Cut's fourth iteration, and then we could really work because we were still. It was only a little bit before I had just gotten my Mac Pro. The trash can version. And so that would have been 2013.
That's exactly right.
It would have been when I ordered it. And then it didn't arrive until the May after.
Months
right.
later.
And
Exactly.
then we were ready to edit the fall of 2014. So that's when we really started picking up editing there because the computer was really not ready for prime time until I'd gotten everything to that point. So we were just doing organizational stuff.
Sure.
And then we've basically, as money comes in, work a little bit, and shoot more. When I got a hold of it, again, there were scenes that were, not quite what they should be. Maybe there was a performance issue. Maybe there were other things. And so we raised more money and went and shot some more, whole bunch more scenes to kind of flesh it out. And, some stuff wasn't working, had to come out. Other stuff had to be shot. And so there was about I want to say a six month period of pre-production and production on those reshoots. And then we picked it up again in, I want to say 2016.
Yes.
And then really finished it.
So one of the best things about shooting on film is you have to be more economical than when you have unlimited digital media.
One take Charlie here.
No, we're not one take Charlie.
I know, I'm teasing you.
3 take Charlie.
Three take Charlie.
So, working in film, I love it because it's a training, and it's almost like being in the military because you've got to nail it, and you don't just nail it, you have to make sure you nail it right. And 3 or 4 takes is all it takes with the actors we have and the scenarios that we set up, and we do as much rehearsal as necessary to get us to the point where I know it's going to be 2 or 3 takes to get it. And that's fun for me because I hate wasting time, and I hate, quibbling over small things. I don't want to be on take 56 with a digital rig.
And our actors are spectacular. We have such a great cast, and they really nailed it most of the time. I mean, it was choosing between good takes generally. So that's a good thing.
That's very pleasant, choosing between just good things.
Right.
So the process of transferring from film to, did you go to ProRes to edit with, or?
It was transferred, just the work print, if you know what a work print is.
Not exactly. I don't work with film.
For those who don't know film, your negative is kept in a vault, and a first one light, what we call a one light print, is struck from the negative, and that work print is what is then digitized to ProRes HQ.
That's not quite how it happened. Sorry.
No, but that's what normally happens.
Let me correct it. So what we did is we had the negative, and then we did a one light transfer. We couldn't afford to do
It wasn't a work print then.
We had no work print. We went right from negative to a transfer of the entire film in different reels. And then, but unfortunately, the quality of the transfer was not of the highest caliber at the time.
Because it was a work print quality transfer.
And we didn't have the funds to make a really high quality transfer of the selects. So Lydia had to work with a very simple and not great file for all the scenes. And then, again...
grainy, not a lot of color.
Yeah, we had a lot of issues, and she was able to take that 16 millimeter one light transfer and turn it into something looking almost like 35 millimeter high-end color corrected, result. Yeah. Maybe we have to send some samples to him later of the shot of, say, the car, which is really grainy, and then show what you
pre
did,
and post,
showing the effects that they provide. It's incredible. I was really blown away. I have one scene where Jack is talking to Anna outside, and it was shot with this eBay stock, which was destroyed. There was grain so big, there were big blue granules flashing on and off the frame. The exposure was off. It was just unusable, and we couldn't afford to reshoot it because it was one of those things where the actors are gone and you can't get them back, and the movie's wrapped and there's no money. And Lydia took that and sampled it and sampled it and sampled it, and by the end of it, you could never tell that it had any kind of an issue. She restored film that was almost like damaged beyond repair and made it look as good as the other stuff in the movie, and that was just miraculous.
It was pretty challenging, but as a lot of Final Cut editors are, we can wear a lot of hats that, say, Avid people and Premiere people can't do. So I wore the hat of the editor. I wore the hat of the special effects correction person. You'd normally hire a whole effects company just to clean this footage up, and I did all of that in Final Cut with the plugins, and then I also did the color correction.
Do you want to tell them how you sharpened the eyes too?
Oh, the eyes. The eyes were a whole bunch of masks, and where you pull the eyes out, and then we looked at the eyeballs. I sent them to a friend in Australia who tracked the eyeballs. This was before Mocha for Final Cut, right? And so he had to do all the tracking, and then I made a number of different transparencies and made sure they tracked correctly. And so some, not all shots, but where we could, we sharpened the eyes to make them,
Glitter. Right.
Well, make it more compelling storytelling.
Well, the thing is, right, like nobody has any idea what the hell's going on in that edit room for years and years. And we're in there trying to sharpen eyeballs. And it can be really infuriating because there's like 8 shots that last maybe 30 seconds of the movie that the eyeballs are really soft. And if you don't do anything with it, people in the audience are going to be thinking like, is this something wrong with the pic? Do I need glasses? You get pulled out of the movie. So this work on the eyeballs was so critical, and yet once the eyeballs were fixed after months and months of labor and time, nobody cared because nobody realized that the eyeballs were wrong. So it's thankless work that this is the first time it's being mentioned ever on air with an interview, and I think it's very important for people who can appreciate soft eyeballs will understand.
Yeah, finishing this film wasn't just editing it like a normal edit because it was processing every frame of a feature-length film that is shot in 16 millimeter that has every problem you can imagine associated with it.
Right.
And so we really, it was editing and then lovingly restoring every frame. That's the real challenge with this film.
That's a lot of painstaking work.
Yes, thanks to Final Cut Pro 10.
That's painstaking work with somebody who cares about the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So Neat Video just came out with version 5 in the last couple of days.
Yeah, so, if I could go and redo.
Can we use that on The Fallen?
We're going to use that. We're using that on the next film, actually.
Great.
He's got another film shot in 16 millimeter, a beautiful war film. Re-release that's going to happen. That hasn't ever been released in the United States. It was released in Europe, but it had, again, it's got the grain of golf balls.
Grain of golf balls.
And Neat 5 is going to be my painting tool, and we will be painting every frame of this to make it perfect. And I don't know if you've ever used Neat Video, but sometimes it will skip frames. And
no,
so
I
didn't
know that.
It'll be clean, and then there'll be like 3 flash frames of full-on grain, and then you don't know that until you've rendered, and so because you can't play it back because it's so processor intensive.
That's what I keep hearing. Yeah.
That it doesn't that it actually won't play back even when rendered on the timeline. We have to it drops. It's like that kind of thing. So you have to process it, render it, export it, re-import it, check it.
Wow.
Oh my God, it's no good. Let's try again.
No fun to
process it, and you have to keep tweaking it till you get it right. And sometimes you have to literally cut a shot into like 10 or 15 different little shots and apply Neat Video to each section of it because the shot has changed so much from the beginning of the pan to the end of the pan that Neat can't keep up. And so Neat is amazing, but some things are just really hard, and it's we really challenge it to its utmost level.
Well, get version 5. I presume it's a lot better. People have said that.
I have it already. Yeah.
Oh, you're okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah, we're supposed to be working on it today.
Well, Final Cut last year. They came out with their own noise reduction, and it's not too bad. I mean, I know it's not Neat level, but it's not too bad for somebody who doesn't. I don't use Neat, so I use that occasionally on dark footage that's grainy and stuff.
Right. I tried it.
Yeah,
Neat is a lot. What Neat does that Final Cut's own noise reduction doesn't do yet. Okay, the Neat does is it allows you to sample a different amount of frames, so it can sample 2, 6, 8, 10 frames on either side. The further you get out, the softer the footage gets, right? Then it allows you to sharpen it by a certain amount. Then it allows you to overlay it onto the old footage to bring out a little bit of those edges. Then it allows you just to sharpen the edges or the colors by color channel. And all of these little tweaks allow you to really get at, okay, the noise is in the red. Let's just do noise reduction in the red channel.
Okay.
Let's not, it's extremely useful on a whole lot of footage that has so many problems.
Well, listen, I completely can understand that because I use Logic for my audio. I don't use Final Cut Pro except for more simpler things. And sometimes people just don't quite understand that Logic is a digital audio workstation meant to work with audio. And even though you can work in Final Cut Pro with audio, for me, it's much easier in Logic. Much, much easier. So I do like podcasts and everything, I do them all in Logic, so I understand that. So I'm going to be getting Neat now that they've got to version 5.
Mm-hmm.
It is you buy the app, right? Not a subscription.
You buy the app and you pay for it every new time. It's not a free upgrade.
But you can keep the old version?
Yes, but it doesn't necessarily work in the newer version of Final Cut, particularly with us going to 64-bit, right?
Okay.
So it's that's going to be the challenge. But really, the fact that it is, we're going to have a 64-bit version is going to really unleash the power of Neat.
Yeah, well, okay. Well, so you mean up to this point, it's only been 32-bit then?
Yes, of course, yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. So where are you located right now? You're in
Brooklyn.
Vermont somewhere. Where?
No, we're in Brooklyn, New York.
You look like you're in a cabin up in the hills of Vermont.
It's our home style.
This is my office, and I try to have a nice, comfortable sitting area for my clients and for Ari.
You have a client right back there, waiting.
A dog client right now. There he is.
Exactly.
He's having a snooze.
He's very interested in us.
Yeah. Truzy, are you interested? Not really.
Not really. Not really at all.
Yeah, and people who work with me must like dogs. It's one of those requirements.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm a huge animal advocate. I do a lot of pro bono work for local animal rights groups.
Nice.
Animal rescue groups, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
One's the local one, so I do a lot of that stuff. So absolutely. So 79 parts. The name comes from.
Well, the idea. First of all, I hate movies that are the same name rebranded.
Sure.
They're always coming out with a movie with the same name as the original, and it's kind of dumbing down the original, and usually the original's best. So when the film was called The Arrangement, after the 5th other film was going to come out before mine was done, called The Arrangement, I said, you know what, this title is way overbaked. So we came up with 79 parts. It was just my friend Robert Bland came up with the title.
Yeah,
and what's cool about it is that I can do sequels and prequels. So I can do prequel 69 parts, sequel 89 parts. I can keep naming it. And no one will ever come near me. There's nothing out there that's anything close to the name.
But it is, there are like 79 speaking parts. And it's you got 79 speaking parts, you got 1979, and you have the Chop Shop, which is all about
79 car parts.
Car parts, right?
Right.
And so it's kind of, not all the speaking roles actually made it into the movie because I did a lot of snip. But
that's what editors do, absolutely.
It's unusual in how many speaking roles there are.
Okay.
In this film.
And this was filmed in New York and Brooklyn, or?
Brooklyn, filmed in Bay Ridge, a little bit in Queens, some in New Jersey, mostly in the New York area.
So when I was watching the previews, you have music by The Doors and by Donovan.
Okay,
so we're not actually allowed to use that music. So actually,
that's
music,
an old preview.
No, that's not. No, he's not looking at the old preview. I think we had a composer, Christian Andrews, who made music similar to those themes.
I see.
And it's sort of different, but similar, and different enough that we're not in legal jeopardy.
You're right, because I was going to say, because that's not cheap.
Well, no, not cheap or not allowed. So
we have a great composer, and we had another band supply us with music as well, and it just gave such flavor to the film to have so many wonderful, unique tracks that feel like that era.
They were created for the movie.
All created
for the movie. Absolutely. And in 1979, this is what I remember of 79. I was in London at the time with my band. This is right when punk rock and pub rock was starting, and the Stray Cats were over there at the same time as my band was over there. And we had Jimmy Carter in office, and gas went from 40 cents a gallon to $1 a gallon. I remember all these things. But of course, I wasn't in New York, so when I watched the trailer, it just really, really takes you back. Like the cars, where did you get the cars from?
First of all, my friend Tom Nico, who was like our location manager, he spent months having relationships with people who owned old cars, and so we were able to connect with those people. So we got a lot of all great cars. Every scene had its own cars.
Nico's an amazing guy.
Yeah.
Right.
But Ari, don't sell yourself short. You are also really great at finding vehicles.
Well, I got the Batmobile.
We got
There
the
you go.
Batmobile. Yeah, we got the Batmobile in the film too.
The original
Absolutely.
run from well, not the original, the original reproduction of the one from the 1960s TV show.
Wow. That's pretty incredible.
That scene got cut from the movie, so
But we put it in the trailer,
Lydia,
in the credits.
Lydia put all the scenes in the credits that I begged her, that she'd cut out of the movie, so at least people
Right.
can see the Batmobile.
Yes, absolutely. So
Well, mainly because one of our actors passed away, and so we couldn't finish the scenes with him, and so his role had to be the scenes that required him in it had to be diminished since we couldn't finish them. We couldn't,
right.
like there's a punchline and it never could be satisfied because this poor fellow died, so it ended up in the credits instead.
Right. So how many, normally when you shoot digitally, there's a shooting ratio of 10, 1 to 1, 20 to 1, 30 to 1. But I imagine shooting on film, it's lower?
3 to 1, 4 to 1.
Yeah.
That's it. If it's going beyond 4 to 1, I'm in a really bad mood. And not only that, any actor who goes 6 to 1 with me or 7 to 1, I'm really pissed off because I'm counting. The film stock is expensive.
And he's
Exactly.
not a guy who loses his temper easily. So
No, I don't lose my temper. I mean, and plus, I wouldn't lose my temper. There would just be a subtle rage underneath the radar that would be sensed by the people on the set, and they would know that we're in dangerous territory here.
they'd all go,
Exactly.
uh-oh.
It's not like I would raise my voice or anything.
Of course.
They would.
Of
No,
course.
it's very subtle. It's like a psychic attack.
But like the way he wrangled all those cars is the same way he's wrangling all these World War II vehicles and planes right now for the next film. He's just a genius at it, and doing period piece is exactly like his forte. So, it is such a pleasure to work on period film.
Right. 79 was completely different attitude. The world was completely different place, of course, in those days, and just compared to now, 2019.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed working in that format because my memories from the 70s are very clear, much clearer than my memories of yesterday. I try to block out all the things that are going on now. So in a way, to be immersed in that time period, and then, of course, to be working on set with a lot of different actors, and some of them were kids or younger in the 70s, and so they remember a little bit. But to make them reconnect with their soul or their spirit from that period, and then to do it now, and it's very shocking or demeaning or not politically correct. There's a lot of stuff that was going on back then.
Right.
And to be able to do that sort of freestyle was just so much fun.
Yeah, I've always been a big fan of New York. I like the East Coast anyway, but New York especially. I was born in D.C. I live outside of D.C. in Baltimore, but I've been to New York multiple times.
I went to high school in D.C.
Oh, did you? Which one?
Yeah. School at Walls.
Ah, okay.
The School at Walls High School when we were still on M Street by 16th.
Okay.
By the Unitarian Church there nearby.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
And then we moved to a few blocks to G Street near the White House.
Right.
During 1980 is when it moved.
I knew a couple of the New York Dolls, so I used to hang out with them in New York when they used to play Max's Kansas City in the early 70s and stuff. I remember those days because I was, a big fan of theirs.
Right.
Yeah. St. Mark's Place, yeah.
New York was very dangerous back in the 70s. My memories of that time, I was always very scared and didn't want to be outside dark, and we were always scared for our lives. I mean, in Brooklyn, it was a very scary time.
Right. So that's the way Baltimore is as well. There's sections of Baltimore there's no way I would go into. D.C. lesser than it used to be, but
right.
You have to know this. I remember when I was on the subway, the first time I was on the subway in New York, this is to see one of my friends in the Dolls. I came up the subway, and before I committed to going outside, I looked around and I said, I'm going back down. Go somewhere else. Just that spider sense. I don't like the way this looks. But I was standing at a newsstand. I never forget this. I was standing at a newsstand, and the subway let out, and I swear, people completely reached over me, to my left, to my right, everywhere to grab their papers and get out of there. And I'm like, whoa. I had no idea. It's just like reach, grab, and I'm coming from down D.C. We don't do stuff like that, so it was very. There was also it's New York is it's so funny that way. I was in a record store and
but it's not that way anymore.
I want to hear this. What it says. Yeah.
I was in a record store and I was just looking at CDs and stuff, and this woman at the top of her lungs said, "Get the F out of here." And she kept saying that. And I'm like, what? Am I doing something wrong? I looked up. It was this sales girl talking on the phone, but just at the top of her lungs.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you transferred the stuff to film, you did the ProRes HQ. What kind of storage did you use?
That's a Lydia store.
He brought over a pile of drives
for
me, but I'm using Promise Pegasus 2.
Okay. I think that's what I have.
I have 2 Promise Pegasus 2 towers, the 32 terabyte ones, like Air Protection, as we call it.
Right.
And then I have another 42 terabyte SanDisk tower. I think it's called SanDisk. That is a time machine backup of that. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's my second backup. And then we had some little drives like this. You want to grab that one? Little travel lassies for to keep okay, we did a really great job today. What if the house burns down? Here, take this.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. So you didn't work in proxy? Did you work in proxy mode at all?
No,
like multi?
Not at all. No proxies at all. It just there's no point in working in proxies. I had to do so much. There was so much processing on every frame. It had to be done on the ProRes HQ video, and I had the trash can, and it was all souped up with all the the most processors and the most RAM and the most everything to make my life easier. And I only just got this iMac Pro. I guess it was about this time whenever it was, maybe not too long ago. Anyway, I sold the trash can and got this one, and I really like it. I'm excited about the new one because of the 8K, the ability to color correct streams of 8K, which I didn't think I would use, but it turns out I'm going to be using on this other film that's coming up, this documentary that's being shot all on 8K, and I'm just like, oh my God! I just tried to edit the trailer for that, the promo, and working with that 8K and this iMac Pro, I had to move everything to proxies, even though this is the soupiest iMac Pro you can get at that time.
No, absolutely.
It's got the most processors, best graphics, most RAM, and the biggest drive, and it's attached to all these fast drives, and it choked on 8K ProRes HQ.
But here's the funny thing. 8K proxies are 4K.
Right. And so it's still big.
Yeah, it's still gigantic files.
So I had to make everything for the first time in my life. I've never worked with proxies before. I had to make proxies of everything, and I edited it great on the proxies, and then I color corrected it and did all the processing I had to do, but I didn't play it real time. I had to do what I do with Neat Video, which was render it, export it, bring it back in, check to make sure it was okay, and thank God it was. So
absolutely. So I guess
I do have eye on that new Mac Pro.
I do too. That thing is, listen, I love the original cheese grater. I have 2 of them downstairs. I love the design, love the ability to poke things in and out. Nobody that I know of was predicting it was going to have 8 PCIe slots.
Right.
Nobody.
Right.
Nobody. So.
Well, this new machine is going to be a great machine, and if this 8K nature documentary comes through this late fall, or maybe like October or something like that, this feature, then I'm probably going to have to pick one of those up, because I don't see me working in proxies for this film.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah,
you'll find out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I'm okay for a while. I'm going to wait for the Mac Pro to come out and see what the real world tests are with it and stuff, and see where the sweet spot is as far as what I buy. But I think I know I'll be getting one eventually, but just a matter of when.
Well, I think that it would handle the Neat Video that I do with Ari for this next film. It would handle it a lot better. to have that extra power. But I'm going to wait and see. And we are okay. We are used to this process of exporting, bringing it in, checking it, exporting, bringing it in, checking it. So we can do that for the time being. But if it becomes fiscally responsible, then I will get the new one. But right now we're going to stick with the iMac Pro.
Absolutely. So, Ari, you won an award, Audience Choice Award at the Soho Film Festival in 2016 for 79 parts?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That created a lot of problems for me because
it was a sneak peek. It wasn't.
The film wasn't officially done. We were testing it.
Oh, okay.
It was out of competition, and then IMDb went ahead and said the film's released. So in 2016, from 2016 to 2018, 19, I was trying to get IMDb to update the release date to when it was actually released, which was just a month ago, and they refused. So
really?
Yeah, it's sort of like dealing with, when you're dealing with eBay or Amazon as a vendor. It's a different world out there.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Just dealing with YouTube.
They really could care less that it was just a test audience to see where we were at.
They have rules. They have set rules that they don't violate, and their team, their people that from the very top echelon down to the people who answer questions for you, they all follow the same rule, and there's no bending a rule.
And they made the mistake, but it's their mistake to make, and they're not going to fix it.
Oh yeah,
so what we did, but we got around it. I mean, I had to change the name of the film to Director's Cut to have the 2019 version out, which creates confusion because if you go on any search engines and you type in 79 parts, Ari Taub, there will come up a 2016 version and a 2019 version.
Okay.
Now, luckily, the 19 version is completely different from the 2016 version, so we didn't lie.
I mean, it was a rough cut. It was just a screener copy to see how some scenes were playing, and yet it still won the audience award. We didn't even know we were in contention for that.
But here's the other thing, right? So film festivals are also very strict. So if you win an award at a major film festival, that disqualifies you from entering a whole bunch of other major film festivals later. So I couldn't re-enter the film into festivals in 2019 because it had already been screened and considered released in 2016.
Isn't that a pain?
Yes, it's awful. We're dealing with it.
So both of you went to NYU Film School.
Correct.
For up-and-comers, people that are maybe just in college, would you still recommend that route in 2019?
I would say so.
Filmmakers?
Look, it's an expensive school. It's one of the best schools in the country, and it still is. And it was great for me. I'm sure it was great for Lydia. And are you not?
I wouldn't recommend it. But we have different takes on this.
Right.
I think that the NYU Film School was great as it was. I am very suspicious of NYU Film School now with its 1,000 graduates every year. I think that's kind of outrageous.
Let me pipe in here. So we're living in different times now than we did back then. What do we have? About 200 180 graduating students, or 70 graduating students per year, or 40?
We had about 75 graduating students to 80 a year back when we graduated.
Right.
Now it's over 1,000, but there's still only 8 or 9 jobs in New York. So
you can't blame. Wait, hold on. You can't blame the school.
Oh, yeah.
You can't blame the school for that. I mean, we're living in different times. There's 10 million more filmmakers out there than back then.
Sure. Well, I still think that the best way to get into film is to look at the message boards and work on films, not spend 20 grand a year going to school to learn how to.
More than 20 grand.
I know, not spend 150 grand.
No, 80 grand.
No, it's 150.
Per year?
No, it's 58,000 a year for a 4-year degree.
If you can afford it, perhaps you can
do it. Put that money into a film.
Your next movie.
Put that money, save that money, go work on people's films for free. Get a good undergraduate degree in history or in sociology or in something that will give you some breadth of knowledge to make films that are interesting, and then work on live at your parents' house and work on as many films as you can for free if you have to. Just keep working on other people's films, because that's how you hone your skills. Try to become an apprentice to anyone you can, and that's my advice.
Sure, I understand.
I'm not going to say anything more.
Well, I understand both points of view. So you're a director. Sometimes the director's title stretches out to different areas. Are you one of the directors that might do a little editing and might do a little some of the other things?
I'm a director who can fill any position on the set during an emergency. It's kind of like a crew.
As trained by NYU. Very good.
If you look at a bomber crew, if a guy gets shot up in the tail gunner, the guy, up in the cockpit has to be able to go back there and still fire the gun. So yeah, I can do any job on a set as needed. Of course, I don't want to be in that situation where I have to do it. I spent many years working as an editor. What happened with technology is technology got so sophisticated in terms of edit equipment and the formats and the different cameras. Everything got so sophisticated. I pretty much stopped, I'd say, in 96, 97, advancing on that level, and I left it to people like Lydia to continue to read the manuals and upgrade and constantly morph into a newer and better, sleeker and meaner editing machine. So I kind of stopped everything at that point and decided, you know what, I'm just going to stay over here and let the technical people do the technical stuff. So today I couldn't do what she does on the level she does. My knowledge of Final Cut only goes up to 7, and unfortunately it stops there. But I'm happy to work in 10 or 11 or 12 or whatever comes out, as long as she's doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's interesting. You actually like Final Cut as a director.
No, I was an Avid guy, to be honest with you. I used to cut on the Avid. But Final Cut came along and kind of, pulled the carpet out from Avid, and I just had to go along with it. I mean, it wasn't like a choice. Final Cut was very expensive, like all the other equipment that we owned at the time.
Old Final Cut was.
Old Final Cut, was a $100,000 edit system back in the day, and that's what we used. And then when new systems,
You're talking about Avid, right?
Yes, when new systems came out, Final Cut came out, it was like Burger King versus McDonald's or whatever. It's just like it just changed everything,
Absolutely.
And that was it.
Oh, I edited on Avid at NBC for many, 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 many years, and used Final Cut Pro 7 for little independent projects on the side. And when Final Cut Pro 10 came out, I was like, okay, I'll try this. And I worked at City Tech, and I was teaching Final Cut 7 and Pro Tools to students. And I started to just look at 10 to just kind of play with it and see what was going on. And I said, oh, well, there are a few things here that are game changers if they can get the rest of their act together. I never really liked Premiere because before its newest iteration, before 7 stopped, it was just not as good as 7, so why bother? But then the new Premiere came out, and that basically became Final Cut 7.5. Sure. And I think that it's a very capable editing system. But why edit on Final Cut 7.5 when you can edit on Avid? And so I would continue to work on Avid and at home play with Final Cut Pro 10 because, my choice is Avid or Avid, basically, because nothing else was as good. And then slowly, because I was open-minded, I was able to watch Final Cut Pro 10 really blossom into something, a must-have tool, honestly. And although if you sat me down today and I had the choice of editing Final Cut or Avid, as of about a year ago, it would be Final Cut. I actually told all of my directors, I said, I'm not going to work on Avid anymore. I'm going to do only Final Cut because where I'm at right now, Final Cut does everything I need it to do. Avid's still better than Premiere.
Yeah, it always amazes me. People are talking about, some people get emotional about their NLE. I don't get emotional about it. I'm kind of more just nuts and bolts. And I really, I'm not going to go to Avid. I'm not going to go to Premiere at this point. However, I was interested in Resolve.
Right, I'm interested in it.
Interested in it. But here's what I'm really interested in. There's a NLE on the iPad called LumaFusion.
I'm using it. It's great.
It's coming to the Mac.
That will be interesting.
They're porting it to the Mac. That will be the one that I'll be interested in as a backup to Final Cut Pro because I love it on the iPad.
It's a very capable editor for the iPad, and it is the go-to editor for the iPad for me. iMovie is just whatever. Who needs it? I would rather wait and get home and work on a on my computer. But for the iPad, I'm just justifiably impressed.
No,
by
I love it for the iPad, and I can't wait to see what they do for the Mac version, because it's like they do some fantastic things. You can color clips and sort by color.
Yep.
So you can get all your blue clips and all your green clips to be sorted. They have a kind of magnetic timeline, but it still has tracks.
Yep.
A lot of neat features, and I've interviewed both of them from LumaTouch multiple times, and they're just the greatest people, and they're just so dedicated to it. So I can't wait for that. I think it's coming out in the fall.
Very impressed, and I will be very interested to look at that. And I also like DaVinci Resolve for its ability to export Final Cut Pro 10 so well.
Yes, it's the Switchblade, yeah.
Right, and I just haven't played with Resolve as an editing software yet because I don't need to. Final Cut does everything I need. Why step back to something that's still in development?
Right.
And that doesn't mean it won't eventually surpass everything and become the new thing. But right now, Final Cut Pro 10 is where it's at for me.
Me too. So 10.5 should be out this year. Probably. Yeah. Well, they've already Apple pre-announced a new version of Final Cut coming out in the fall when they debuted the Mac Pro. So I'm going to presume that's 10.5. So
I would assume so.
What kind of features are you looking for?
Oh wow!
Just a couple.
There are a couple of features I would like to see happen. I would really like to see a better way of handling subtitles and closed caption.
How do you mean better? How?
Well, I think that it was a really big step forward that they added closed caption as a possibility.
Right.
But what they don't have is the ability to export regular old open captions as that you can't convert easily open captions. So, for instance, on another film that I'm working on, we require open captions because we're doing World War II veterans who are in their 90s, and it's sometimes very difficult to understand what they're saying. So we have to have subtitles during some of what they say. And then, of course, for releasing the film in general, we also have to have closed caption. And I have to kind of negotiate between the closed caption, open caption situation. And I really need to be able to export the open caption as closed caption for international audiences. And there's just no way to do that right now. It's there are a whole bunch of hoops you have to jump through, but the simplest, fastest way is to just retype everything.
Oh man, that's a pain.
and with a feature-length film with thousands upon thousands of little titles, it's a mess. I would really like to see them make a better export and allow regular old subtitles as opposed to closed caption to be exported as an Excel file, and to be able to import them from an Excel file with time code, like the old edit decision lists.
Right.
Geez, that would be great if we could use an EDL to import, say, transcript. That would be amazing. I would love to see a better transcription process. And then the other thing, of course, is audio. I really, really, really would like to see an audio interface that works great with Final Cut Pro 10. I would really like to be able to manually mix with a mixer instead of with a rubber band. And I'd really like to see soundtracks be able to we can just pull some of the abilities from other software that they already own, like Logic, and give us some of those tools, more of those tools, and that would help a lot.
Right.
Those are my main wish lists.
Do any of the NLEs now? I guess Avid works with Pro Tools with a mixer, with a live mixer.
Avid works with a mixer. Premiere works with. I mean, you can buy an Avid workstation or one of what used to be. There was a great little company, and I even owned their mixing setup and everything. Their little USB and devices. I can't remember the company anymore, though. But with Final Cut Pro 10, of course, that all broke. I used it with Final Cut Pro 7.
Right.
And I used it with Avid, and I used it with Premiere, and I could use it with Logic, could use it with Pro Tools.
Sure.
And no, not anymore. I waited for Final Cut to be able to use it, and then I just sold the devices when I realized I wasn't going to be running Avid from my home edit suite. And so that went bye-bye. I was very sad.
Hey, people are always talking about collaboration. Would that affect you at all for Final Cut?
No, I think pretty much we've got really great collaborative tools coming up. And since mostly I'm not collaborating, I'm exporting for the mixer, and I'm exporting. I tend to do all the color correction myself since I'm also a colorist. So I don't normally export for the colorist, but I export for After Effects to certain graphic artists. And I'm finding the round trip using Frame.io really useful.
Right.
And I think that there are a couple other that are up and coming I want to take a look at and experiment more with. I think our next film, we're talking about having a proper edit room with assistants. Ooh. And then I will need to have a better setup for assistants with, like I used to have with Final Cut Pro 7. I used to have my edit room here, and then in this room back here, there would be 3 stations for assistants and an apprentice. And they were all connected with Ethernet to a server, to Final Cut server. Right? Remember the old server software?
Yeah, I remember that
server software. And so eventually I see we're going to be going that way, but I'll be using Final Cut Pro 10 for that. I don't see me switching to another software.
No, it's a pain. I learned Final Cut Pro 7 and then 10, and I want to stick with it for the most part. It's difficult to go, other than trying them out. It's difficult to switch. I've tried, and it's just like I really can't do it. It's too many things I like.
Oh, I mean, I'm an editor. I'll use whatever tools I'm supposed to use. At NBC, I'm supposed to use Avid. But at home, where I can pick and choose my clients, because it's not my bread and butter.
Right.
I can pick and choose what clients I want to work with. Then my clients, if they really want to work with me, they have to work with Final Cut Pro 10 because that's what I work in. But if I got to the point where there was a director I really wanted to work with on a film I really wanted to work with, if they wanted to put me on another system, I can use whatever system they put in front of me. That's not going to limit me. I'm an editor first. I am system independent if necessary.
Exactly.
I have my preference.
How is Ari in the edit suite? Does he come in there?
Ari is awesome. We love working together. But, sometimes we shoot rubber bands at each other.
That's what I was wondering.
We never shot a rubber band at each other, ever. Maybe she's using that as a symbol for something else.
That's a metaphor.
Never shot a rubber band at her.
The slings and arrows. No, that's
never shot a sling. No, we get along very well.
Yeah,
I think the most difficult thing for me is I'm very impatient. And she's an editor, and she has to work in very detailed levels, and she's very particular, and she makes sure that she does things right. She doesn't cut corners. So she'll do it right. So we could spend hours and hours so that she can do it right and not get one shot done. And I'm looking at my watch and I'm saying, I got to get the hell out of here. I got to get home and feed the baby. So that is the only point of contention. And that doesn't happen all the time. It just happens when we're doing complicated effects and things like that.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that Ari and I have complementary personalities. I'm very anal retentive in my way, and he's very anal retentive in his way.
I'm not anal retentive at all.
let's just say it's very complimentary, and the details that he sees and picks up on are ones that I would miss, and the details that I see are the ones that he's not seeing, and so therefore we kind of make a production whole here, and it's a pleasure to work with Ari. I love working with him. That's why we're so excited about our next project. It's
absolutely.
Really...
But you guys are both East Coasters.
Yes.
Could you do a film in L.A., do you think?
You mean shoot it there and she's editing over here?
Yeah, no, go there and do the whole film.
I don't want to shoot in L.A., but then I shouldn't say that.
One could if one really wanted to hurt oneself with a car. I mean,
No,
everything is car-based there.
Some of the films I want to do are all going to be shot in Europe, so I might need Lydia to be over there in Europe
I
with
see.
me, or editing here and remotely connected.
We'll go wherever our production takes us. I mean, do you mean would we make a move to LA and base out?
Yeah,
of
I
LA?
mean, people think of Hollywood some people think of it as the center of the video editing universe. I don't myself. I mean, there's plenty of places that are just do great work, but I was wondering if you would, consider moving there to do films.
No,
Never.
I'm 54 years old. I'm never going to move to LA.
Never.
I'm not
I mean,
either.
you should have asked us 20 years ago when we were more impressionable, but that's never going to happen.
No,
I'm not either.
I think the thing is that we're East Coasters and we're going to work in the East Coast, and we have enough work to keep us going. There's no reason for us to pick up shop and go there. We have too much work as it is. I am double booked. It is hard for him to get into the edit room with me. I don't need to be somewhere else where I'll have the same. I mean, I prefer living on the East Coast.
I do too.
New York. I prefer if I never have to get into a car, it's too soon, and that. The lifestyle of not needing a car and having everything walking distance is for me. I love it.
Absolutely. No, I go to the West Coast twice a year now for Final Cut Pro Creative Summit, which is coming up.
I want to go to that.
Yeah, and then for NAB, well, in Vegas, go to Vegas, and that's plenty.
Right.
Between the airports, I went 3 times last year because Brad Olson, I co-edited the Final Cut Pro documentary with Brad Olson. Off the tracks, and I went out there for the premiere at Hollywood. That was kind of neat.
Cool.
But twice
I
a year.
I have yet to see that. I wanted to see that. I got it ready to see.
Okay, I think it's everywhere now.
Yeah.
So 79 Parts, I noticed, is on Amazon Prime, which is where I was started to watch it.
That's correct.
And it's also on YouTube, I think.
And iTunes.
iTunes, YouTube,
I looked on iTunes.
Google, and Google Play.
Google Play. It is on iTunes. You can find it there.
I prefer iTunes.
Me too.
Yeah, it's there on iTunes. You just have to type in enough words to find it. It's not like, it's not like instantly apparent, I guess.
Correct.
Yeah.
Excellent. So what did you learn with doing 79 Parts? Anything? Usually I learn something every project I work on.
I learned something. I made a decision. First time in my life, I decided I'm not going to take 15 years to make a movie. That was a good one. No, that's tough. That's a tough lesson.
That's a good lesson.
No, but it's a very tough lesson. It's not teachable, because the reason why I say that is because I had no choice. I had to make it in 15 years. And the reason why is that the movies that I do, it's not easy to get investors for movies, no matter what you do, big or small. And
not being in Hollywood.
No.
Right.
Being in Hollywood doesn't make it any easier. It makes it harder. But just to answer the question is that I had to make a choice of making a movie piece by piece or not making a movie at all. So that's the reason why it took so long. We would raise money for a year and shoot maybe a week with the money we raised in a year, and then raise money again for another year and shoot maybe a week and a half. So it was just the ratio of shooting to financing was so difficult that it took so long to make the movie. So the takeaway is that I'd like to do a movie the way a regular film is done, like you do it in 1 to 3 years instead of like 15 years.
Right.
So this way I can do a lot more movies than, wait till the next decade is done before I finish my next movie.
Exactly.
I think that I learned, because we edited this over 2 different editing systems and several different versions of the software, and everybody says, oh, never upgrade, but we had to because it was years and years and years, and transferring things from what they say about don't change systems, don't change whatever, it is a pain in the neck, but it's definitely worth it if the new software is stable. And it was always a difficult transition, but I think I learned so much because there's so much software to learn, so many plugins that come up, always these things I have to try and test and say, hey, Ari, I think I found a problem solver for this. It's called Mocha. Let's get it installed, And if I were to sit down and edit 79 parts now, like if he gave me everything and started now.
Oh man, 69 parts.
It would be such a different experience because we really know what 10 is capable of now. So now we know how to set up. We were creating it. There was no one else who had done it before at that time. So as far as I know, there were no other features on 10 when we started at the beginning until later. There was no best practices.
It's also a good thing that we did our credit sequences last, because she was able to use the newest and coolest credit plugins that I've ever seen and make them her own. And people love our credit sequence. They're like, wow, how'd you do that?
Yeah.
Right.
I have an opening credit for
That's Motion VFX help there.
I have a credit in the beginning for my company logo. And the funny story about that is that our distributor required that they have their company logos in the front of the movie. And I was concerned because we didn't have a budget to make our own company logo, and it would not look like it was our movie at all. It would be the distributor's movie completely. And so Lydia then, found some plug-in that had a sort of a boilerplate that was just out of this world, and then we made a company logo credit that was much better than anybody else's, which I think is kind of funny. Instead of like being on the bottom of the heap, we were on the top of the heap. Overnight.
Well, there are so many wonderful tools out there for Final Cut, and Motion VFX is one of those tools that, if you know anything about Motion, Apple Motion, then you can really pick apart those beautiful templates and really make them unrecognizable in your own, because they have created it for you. And if I'm told, oh, we don't have a logo, I'm like, well, when do you need it by? Tomorrow. Okay, well, let me just see what I can do. Sure. And you can do that because of wonderful companies like Motion VFX.
They're a great company. They're a top tier for sure.
Yep. 90% of their stuff I don't need, but that little
exactly
is just great.
Exactly.
And it's affordable, so why not, right?
Speaking of that, I wish that there was a way to drag and drop Final Cut Pro effects into it. You can organize them by dragging and dropping them in the interface. Make your own collections of you. Like you said, you don't use 90% of them.
Well, you can. With Motion, if you go in, you can restructure your folders and then have them be under a particular folder. So I do that already. I save all my motion effects that I use regularly. I save them by film name. So I'll have a folder called 79 parts inside Final Cut that will have all the motion effects I want for 79 parts. Then I have another one for Yasuni Man, and another one for Sunken Roads, and another one, and so on.
I understand. I want to do it in Final Cut.
Right. Well, I created in the background. I created in Motion, and then Motion is where I save it all to Final Cut. I'm saying I open them in Final Cut under like when it says you want to save this to what folder when you work on just open the effect inside Final Cut, right click on it and say open in Motion. Then save it as a new effect, name it, and then it says where do you want to save it. Create a new folder called the folder My Favorites.
Right.
And you can
do
save
that.
them. Yeah.
I do that, but like what I mean is like in the browser, I can drag clips around and put them in folders, and I can make smart collection and all that. I just want to do that in the Final Cut Pro interface. Just make my own collections as I see fit. Because I'll modify things in Final Cut, and I want to reuse it. And I want to go back and forth to Motion. I just want to do it in Final Cut. So I like to be able to drag and drop.
That would be great if you could do it. It's true.
Yeah.
I find that most of the effects are hamstrung inside Final Cut Pro 10, and you get the real breadth of what they can do in Motion.
Absolutely.
So literally just opening it in Motion, not doing anything to it, and saving it to Final Cut opens a lot of those other things that were closed.
Sure. You can make different. I know I've done that before. If something wasn't available in the Final Cut version, I open it in Motion and enable it and then resave it. Absolutely.
Right. And that allows me to have a whole set of just a folder inside Final Cut Pro effects called 79 parts with all my favorite builds in there that I'm going to use.
Ari, do you have what favorite current directors do you like? Do you have a couple that you like?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'm old school, so I love Clint Eastwood. I love Quentin Tarantino. I love Steven Spielberg. Like, the common, people that always deliver. They always deliver. They never come up short, and they always do something different. They never do the same thing twice. I like that kind of style. I like to work that way as well.
I met Spielberg at the National Archives.
Nice.
He was there for some kind of an award. Ken Burns was interviewing him, and I was the main audio guy, so I get to mic the guest up, so I'm back in the green room micing him and micing Ken Burns up. I got to meet him then.
Was he a good, nice personality behind the
scenes? He was fantastic.
Nice.
You know what he said? He said, I walked in at the end of the event, and I walked to the green room to get the mics, because sometimes people forget to get the mics off of guests and they leave. So I went down there right after the event, and he goes, how do you think we did? And I said, let me tell you something. You're one of the best presentations we ever had here at the National Archives. It was fantastic. Nice. And then Stephen goes, well, I think that's because of Ken Burns. I said, no, it's be both of you, because Ken was asking the questions. So very nice guy. And I'm also a fan of Clint Eastwood's as well, and Quentin Tarantino's. I just saw The Hateful Eight. Boy, was that
it's a heavy movie. He
developed that into 4 parts, 5 parts on Netflix or Amazon Prime, one or the other.
Right.
So it was a multi-part series. Yeah, that was, but it's typical Tarantino. Typical.
I've seen him. I've met him in an elevator in Cannes.
Wow.
I spent all of 12 seconds with him, but I got his energy. I felt his energy.
Yeah. So he has that new film coming out about Hollywood.
Yeah.
I
haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure I will.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of the old British films by Powell and Pressburger, The Red Shoes and Black Narcissus and the Life and Death of Colonel Blimp. It's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Never heard of it.
But I really like World War II movies from the 1940s and 50s. So that's why the Powell and Pressburger films are my favorites.
World War II films that are going to be probably from this World War II films from today, like in other words from today's perspective, but told from the wartime. So in other words, the films will feel like they're told from the wartime, and I may choose to shoot with a vintage style cameras and everything. I'm not sure yet, but fresh in terms of looking at the war from a very, very close point of view. And my big favorite takeaway films of recent times are Downfall, Dunkirk, and maybe if you go back a little bit, Dust Boat. Like films that are really in there. Or Schindler's List, you can call that a war film, even though it wasn't about war. It was. It had the look of it was period, which is fantastic.
Ari did the most amazing film in film school. It was all shot on a submarine.
World War II American submarine.
Is that right?
It was amazing, and he was just this little blonde film student, and I remember at the film festival, it's like I was like so confident my film was going to be the best, and then Ari's film comes up, and I'm like, holy crap, that's so good! It was so good.
Where was the submarine? Where was it?
In Hackensack, New Jersey. It's still there. It's the USS Ling. It's been abandoned, and they can't get it out. There's a lot of talk about what they're going to do with it. I hope they preserve it, but the sub is still there. We shot on that submarine, and we did a lot of in-camera effects, torpedoes firing, and I mean everything. We had that sub. We repainted the interior of the sub, and we tried to make.
He was 18 years old,
man. We were trying to make that look as real as possible. We had flybys. So I had an aircraft fly over the sub, a bomber. I mean, like I went all out with that movie at the time.
It was a great film for a kid. I mean, it was just great, and I knew then. I'm like, oh my God, I got to hitch my wagon to this train. This is a great train.
Oh goodness. Well, we've had a great time here today. I really enjoyed it. We've been on for an hour and 13 minutes and 57 seconds, and it did get on YouTube. It is on live on YouTube now, so it did eventually go live. I'm not sure. You know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking maybe YouTube didn't put it up because I played that trailer at the beginning.
Oh,
interesting.
So maybe that might have been. I was concerned about that. I have the director and the editor on with me. But sometimes that might have been flagged where they wouldn't let it up until that was done. But we are on there now, so we did eventually get up there. So
cool.
So I recommend everybody go see 79 Parts on iTunes, Amazon Prime, YouTube, Google Play. I don't know what Google Play is. I don't have any Google stuff like that, but I do have Amazon Prime and I do have iTunes for certain. Anything else you want to talk about before we stop here for today?
Well, I think Ari should mention. I guess he's just in development of the next film that's coming up, and the film that I'm working on, I wouldn't mind mentioning, is
Absolutely.
Sunken Roads. It's a World War II documentary, feature-length documentary, that is following a young woman, following and taking care of, and the nurse of, basically, a couple of old vets who decide to disobey their family's wishes and go to England and Normandy on their own during the 70th anniversary. And she also mics them up and shoots 40 days of footage and does this really in-depth, very personal, sweet film that is also about intergenerational friendships. And sunkenroads.com, folks. It's a great film.
Sunkenroads.com. So 40 days of shooting?
Yes, 40 days of her with these guys. And she got it took a year to just organize all the footage and sync all of the microphones. But it's a great little film, and it's just up and coming now. So
excellent.
I'm working on 3 feature-length war films, epic projects that are films that have been on the shelf for me for about 20 to 30 years. So I'm generally trying to catch up on old stuff.
Other stuff.
And now that I've finished 79 parts, I can go full guns. The difference now is I'm actually going to go into production on these films rapidly, all almost at the same time, one after another. I'm not going to wait 20 years per film. It's all going to happen. It's going to be more like a Spielberg-style setup where he's got, films in pre-production, production, post-production. Otherwise, like I tell everyone, if I don't do that now, I'm just going to go fishing and call it a day. It's all or nothing with me at this point.
Yeah, that's the best way to do it. I know when I work on, if I'm editing, I like to have 2 or 3 projects so I can switch off.
That's good. Yeah, you bounce between them, and then of course you've got fresh eyes for each project. By the time you come full circle, the first project is fresh, and you can see all the mistakes you made yesterday.
Exactly.
So, but what's different, what I'm doing, is that I require a lot of money and a lot of moving parts. Editing is totally different from production, right? Because you've got live people, that you're dealing with people's lives.
Yes.
And all kinds of extenuating circumstances, including weather and, where you're shooting and whether someone's available or not. When you're in the edit room, it's all in the can. So you're totally working within a different environment. It's like you've got, one is a raging storm out at sea, and the other is like you're in a fish tank.
Well, I think that also the big difference these days also is that if you're shooting digital, you can have your dailies that night and look at them all sunk and make selects, and the editors can start putting together scenes based on what's been shot that day. And that's how I hope we will work on these next films. Please.
It's debatable on what format we shoot on, really.
Please do digital.
We're not going to decide that on the air, Lydia.
I know.
We're not. If you did shoot digital, do you have a preference? What, like a Red camera or an RE camera?
Hearing Red Dragon or Alexa. Those are the 2 words that I keep hearing. But honestly speaking, I don't really care. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't care. If I want my next film to look like 35 millimeter for theatrical release, I need to shoot on one of those formats, or 35 millimeter film. But honestly speaking, it doesn't matter as long as the format is consistent and as long as the format suits the subject material.
Exactly.
Yep. That's excellent. So listen, we're going to have both of you back on here again. This has been fantastic. So we'll check in on your project as it's going along. We don't have to wait for it to be finished this time.
Maybe we'll come on for The Fallen or something.
Sure, we'll come on for The Fallen for Final Sacrifice.
Absolutely.
Because we're in the process of cleaning that old film restoring it.
Using the modern technology. Final 10.9.
Final cut 10 billion. And a lot of neat video. Yeah. Also, I should say, I am really enjoying Denver Riddle's cinema grade a lot. I just did a whole color-corrected Sunken Roads with using cinema grade almost exclusively, not exclusively, but almost exclusively, and I was very impressed. It has some growing pains, but it's a great little program plugin.
Absolutely, give a plug to Denver. I have it as well. I bought it when it first came out.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few developers that I buy their stuff, whether I use it or not. Just because I want to support them. And I spend a lot of money on audio plugins, though, to be honest with you, because I love the vintage gear, and because started with, before I was a video editor, I did audio. I had, but reel-to-reel decks, and I still have them. I still have them, and I'm going to fire them back up again when I get my studio finished downstairs.
Cool.
I have real anything 40 years old or plus. I have, so I have reel-to-reel.
And you're in DC still?
Outside of, I'm north of DC and northwest of Baltimore, so between the two.
Great. Okay. Well, we'll come look at your studio when you're done.
Absolutely. It'll be. I'll have it online.
Cool.
I'll be doing videos, online. It's been fantastic, both of you.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
enjoyable. We will be talking to you again, and like I said, this has been on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope. So I'll send you the links.
Upscope.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.